My friend Kieran popped round the other day, just on spec. I see him from time to time. He's a lovely bloke. And he brought round a book. He said, I must show you this book. It's a family heirloom. I think it's from the 1930s, something like 1935, if I remember. And he said, I can't leave it with you because it's important to me, not necessarily the contents as such, but because we've had it in our 1930s house for so long. So he let me have a look at the book, and I was mesmerised by it, actually. It somehow spoke to me, and I said, you know what, I've got to go and see now if I can find it myself. And I went online, and I did find it, not on the big website that everybody goes to, but actually a different website with rare books. And I discovered it, and I bought it. It was about a tenner or something. And since I've got it, it arrived the other day, and since I've got it, it spoke to me in a way that is very difficult to explain. But I wanted to try and explain and what it means and what it means for all of us in many ways. Now, you might think, well, what is it? Is it the Bible? Is it that kind of important thing? Well, in a way, it is a Bible, but not in the way that you can imagine. It's called the Query Book. The Query Book. It is the Home Handyman. It's a compendium, if you like, of everything that you would need to do if you were moving into a house for the very first time, a young couple, for example, in the 1930s, and you'd think, blimey, we can only afford so much. We've got this house. We want to be able to renovate it, do it up, make things, make toys, and so on and so forth. And I know the Reader's Digest kind of came out with these type of things, all the woodwork that you needed to know in the 1970s and 80s, or things to do at the home, or all of this. And I dare say there are millions of other books that do similar things. However, this one really talks to me because it's of a time before the great harms that were being perpetrated on us to turn us into obedient slaves. Before the advent of television that was going to program us, before really that schools turned from being enlightening places to help give us knowledge into these places in which they are now training good slaves for the state. It was in a time before the Second World War, at a time when basically things were still on the edge of the old, before the dawning of this dreadful period that we have, all of us of a certain age, have lived through. And this book to me represents the independence that people had. I've often spoken on this channel about how we need to take back control, how we need to be responsible for ourselves. We've given so much away. We go to a furniture shop and we buy stuff that's buy now, pay later, and it falls to bits. Things that are shabbily made, things that are factory produced, things that have been made by people who have no soul for you, they're not putting their love and attention into those objects which people are just filling their house. No resonance. And this is so important, actually. People don't realise it. I think in many ways we've had to go through this to realise the importance of the fact that we need really to be making our own stuff, to be looking out for ourselves, and to have that home responsibility. And a compendium like this, so it talks about woodworking and metalworking. It goes into sandpaper. It talks about cabinet making rabbit hutches, and how to use a blow lamp, metal turning, soldering. I'm just going through these random things, ceiling repairs, painting and enameling. It deals with electricity, heating and water and lighting. It talks about how you use gas and how you put it all together. I mean, you wouldn't need a plumber and you wouldn't need an electrician. How to even mend plates, china repairs, clocks, the care of, fretwork. It talks about etiquette, which apparently my friend has said to me, Kieran, he says it's absolutely hilarious, the of that because it's very much of its time. It talks about bringing up the children from baby to the first 3 years, and then later childhood, adolescence it goes into, brush making, sea glass craft, the weaver's craft, painting on wood. I mean, it just goes into how to make your own soft toys. This was a time, of course, remember, just before the war or just after the war, in which there was a lot of scrimping and saving. And we were in a difficult place. In the 30s, of course, we'd had the Great Depression in the 20s, all manufactured, of course. We'd seen these amazing designs that this century was supposed to see, people like Telsa and free energy and incredible health, bioresonance and Rife machines. We saw them slowly being disappeared by the pharmaceutical companies and by the bankers, and then by big agro, the manufacturers of pesticides and things, changed the landscape so that we became dependent on others, that our health became dependent on pills and things. We saw all of that. Prior to that, of course, we were very much in control. We used to do things for ourselves. And here it's got, on page 426, the gardener's year. And it goes through the various things that you would be growing in the garden at any time, how to lay out the garden, how to prune your trees, and so on, and what you would expect. Some brilliant ideas, and you'd be self-sufficient effectively in your own home, depending on, of course, where you live. And then it talks about party games in the evenings, because television wasn't a thing. It talks about cooking and vegetables and meat and breads and cakes and jams and jellies, and it's home Bible, as I said at the beginning. And things like this gave people inspiration to be prepared for a life where they were in control. They weren't relying on the government. They weren't relying on the council. They weren't relying on other people. The easy way out. They weren't going to fast food restaurants where the food that they were having was highly processed, badly cooked, with no love and no care, that factory, high-intensity type of food that we've been eating, which has been making us ill. This was about family. This was about bringing people back together again. This was about a nucleus of people who loved one another, cared for one another, and would embellish each other with love and affection. And this, in fact, in my way, better than a Bible, which may have given you some religious knowledge and stuff, but this was the practical Bible. This was dealing with life and in many ways working with nature, working with wood, working with metal, understanding it and being self-sufficient, being proud of what you can achieve and being satisfied, pleasantly satisfied with the skills that you've acquired with your hands. We've lost all of this. Very few people now make things. We sit in front of screens. We let other people cook our meals. We forget where food comes from. I'm going to be looking at exactly where food comes from and how we get back to that in later on this year. I'm going to be traveling around and seeing different farmers and talking about the food and learning as much as I can so that when I can purchase some land and I was going to say God willing, but hopefully that will happen and I will take you on that journey, because food and being self-sufficient and being practical and giving ourselves a chance to do things again with our hands is what satisfies and gives us huge amount of pride. It is the essence of living, that we are in control of our destiny and not the government and not their surveillance and not their ID cards and not their money system and all of those things. That we, in and of ourselves, and the people that we bring around us, the community that we bring around us, will bring us immense amount of happiness and fun and love and joy, and we will thrive. And that is what we need to do again. So I urge you, if you can get a copy of the Query book or anything like this and have a go for yourself, take back control of your buying by making, take back the craft and the skills, and you will thrive. That I am really sure of.